Okay. So, good evening everyone and welcome to the Foundation Day debate. For this debate, I would like you to picture a scene. There is a girl in a small town village. She has nothing but a smartphone and a data pack. With this, she attends the lecture of a professor from a university where she will most likely never step foot. She learns how to write a code. She does a project and maybe even lands a tech job. And multiply this by millions, and then you know that the uncomfortable question that we are discussing today is that if knowledge is now free and universal, where does the university, the classroom, or the formal learning stay? That is the question we are going to answer today. The topic for the debate is democratization of education and universal access to learning resources will make formal degree-based education irrelevant. The most important thing or interesting thing about the debate is the participants. They are not merely neutral experts speaking on a topic of their expertise. Rather, they are talking about something in which they have their own skin in the game. First of all, we have the students. They have staked their career with the confidence that a degree-based education will open doors for them. Countless exams, the JEE preparation, the fees, all of this is based on the confidence that a degree education is valuable. On the other hand, we have the faculty team, and that is actually where the irony of the entire debate is. These are members who have staked their careers based on a formal degree, yet they are the ones who are leading the charge in democratization of knowledge and free access of knowledge. So we ask them, are you participating in this debate where, you are challenging what has built you? So that is the interesting part of the debate today. Now, just to make it clear, the topic of the debate is not whether online education is useful or not. It is useful, it's a no-brainer. What we are going to discuss is something more nuanced, something more sharper. The moot point for the debate is online and free resources merely a disruption or an evolution to the existing education system? Are the two sources of knowledge competing or contributing to each other? So for that, now I would like to introduce you to the two teams. Speaking for the motion, meaning speaking who believe that the education system, the formal education system is under threat, is the faculty team. We have Professor Vikrant Rachirla, Professor Mainak Mandal, and Professor Chand. And from the student side, we have Bijita, Krish, and Vedant Vijay. And our judges for the day are Professor Haimanti Banerjee. She is the Associate Dean of Outreach and also the PIC of NPTEL, which is one of the world's leading sources of free education and knowledge. We have Professor Uday Shankar, who is the Dean of the Rajiv Gandhi School of Intellectual Property Law and an avid debater himself. And we have the Dean International Relations, Anandru Bhattacharya. So without further ado, let us begin the debate. We will start with round one. Round one of the debate is the standard debate where each member from the team will come to the stage, speak for maximum 5 minutes, and this will continue till all the 6 speakers have spoken. After that, we are going to have the rebuttal round where each team can ask other team questions, where they try to puncture each other's arguments. The third round is the judges round, and after that, we will open the floor for questions from the audience. So, I will first invite Professor Vikrant Rachirla. He will be speaking for the motion. Yes. And before we move forward, I will request all of you to join me in keeping the phone in silent mode. Thank you.
Very good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. So, around 12 lakh students graduate with an engineering degree every year. Of these, around 10% graduate from reputed institutes like IITs, NITs, IIITs, BITS, and other top-tier private institutes. Those that go to these institutes enjoy a good campus, quality faculty, rigorous schedules, active student life, reputed alumni networks, and relatively good placements. However, the vast majority of students, close to 80 to 85%, study in local private engineering colleges affiliated with state technical universities. These colleges often lack infrastructure, do not have access to competent faculty. There is not much of academic rigor, nor is there any alumni connect. These students, the vast majority, often end up spending a good amount of money, time, without much to show for at the end of their programs, other than a degree on paper. We, the faculty team, will present the viewpoint that degree-based education in the current format is not relevant for vast majority of students. We will argue this from different viewpoints, from viewpoints of industry, students, and government. For most students and parents, education and degrees are a means to get a steady, high-paying job. To understand what system will work for them, formal or informal, let us first look at the question of why do employers pay salaries? Why do they pay money to employees? This is something that I always wondered as a child. We were always asked to study well and get high marks. I never understood why will anybody pay me any money for getting high marks in science, maths, English, and other subjects. This is only something that I have realized recently, that people pay you money because you help them make money. You help them make 1,000 rupees, they would be willing to pay you maybe about 100 to 500, depending on the sector and how generous they are. So it is only recent to understand if all engineers need similar skills, and accordingly, if all engineering graduates need to be trained in a similar manner, let us take a case study. Let us look at a company which manufactures lifts or elevators. So if you look at the current statistics, you would see that there are around 900,000 installed lifts in the country, and about 100,000 lifts are sold every year. And if you look at the demand side in terms of what does the company require in terms of employees, they require around 600 design engineers with very good background and overall 360-degree view of the subject. They require about 3,000 odd manufacturing engineers, about 3,000 odd sales and marketing engineers, but overwhelmingly what they require are service and maintenance engineers, about 18,000. So the requirement of service and maintenance engineers is over 30 times of that of design engineers. And something more interesting is the company actually makes lot more money, about 4 times from service and maintenance than from sale of lifts. So, and further as the market grows year on year, the requirement for service engineers will be much more as compared to the design engineers. Now, while design engineers need very good grip over theory and some insight over practical aspects, service and maintenance engineers need little insight into theory but very good hands-on experience. For most positions in industry, specific skills are needed rather than a generic degree. And this is particularly true for all service jobs, which is the vast majority of jobs. Thus, if quality learning resources are available to all and multi-tiered evaluation system is created where anyone can take a multi-tiered exam in the subject of their liking, okay, then that is something that will work quite well, something on lines of GRE. Companies can float their requirements that they need for a job.
Less than 30 seconds left.
Form a set of skills, and students can get good at those skills to seek those jobs. So if you have a large database with content, skill requirement, then what this does is reduce the overall burden on the students, increase training opportunities, reduce learning time, and produce better trained workforce for industries. Thank you.
Next, we have the first speaker from the student side. Bijita is going to present her views. Please start.
Good morning, good evening, respected professors and students present here. I'll be beginning my speech in 3, 2, and 1. I'll begin with defining democratization of educational resources. Massive expansion of free or low-cost access to learning materials like MOOCs, YouTube lectures, open access research papers, for example, the Khan Academy-style platforms, or even the National Digital Library of India by IIT Kharagpur. Also probably something like Coursera, but practically cheaper and more accessible to most people. The concept is that educational content, instead of remaining exclusive to universities, is now available to anyone with an internet connection, irrespective of cost and geographical barriers. Defining irrelevance within the context of this debate means that formal degree-based education will cease to be necessary and that the market, employers, and professional systems will stop requiring it as a gate of entry. I think relevance then is decided by the demands and needs of the market and industry, yes, but also by its perceived value and cultural capital it serves as across family, especially those that come from underprivileged and marginalized background, for whom it is probably the only pathway to rise above and secure a position that they would not have access to otherwise. So long as there exists a narrative in society that makes every child dream into getting into IITs and AIIMS, so long as a mother feels proud telling her neighbors that her son studies in this very institution, so long as market and thousands of families have faith in this institution, the relevance of degrees is not going anywhere. We will prove to you that throughout all these fronts, even a qualitatively good word like democratization does not dismantle the age-long legacy of formal degree-based education. The formal degree-based system works on two central ideas, vetting and trust. Before formal degree education existed, professional bodies and society as a whole had no standardized way to verify who could be trusted with organizational management or finance or even a patient's body. The university system solved this by centralized vetting. One institution tests, trains, and certifies people over years under consistent standards with external accreditation bodies checking the university itself. Why do people even sought after a degree or knowledge or skills for that matter? This brings us to 2 points that decide this debate. We have two arguments that operate exclusively on our side. First, filtering. I think most people who get into corporate understand that the actual job is almost always more elementary, narrower, and less technical than what was studied to get it, which probably means any average intelligent adult who could learn and do the said job when provided basic training for like 6 months. The question then is, when there exists equally skilled labor who could perform the job as good as the next, how do you choose who gets the offer? I think this is where the degree hierarchy comes in. Nobody's deriving thermodynamic equation in a boardroom meeting with clients or doing calculus while making their decks. So why do employers still explicitly seek out highly technical degrees like engineering, physics, mathematics at all? Because the act of accomplishing the degree is already screened for the trait they care about, regardless of the subject. It is a proxy for something else. Can this person survive 4 years of sustained difficulty, meet deadlines under pressure, follow instruction, and absorb dense material under external evaluation? This is something that you encounter exclusively in formal degree-based education. There's evidence of discipline and trainability. The degree, therefore, is a credential. Democratization defeats itself as a credential. Because for something to function as a credential, it needs to be differentiating. The moment a course becomes genuinely accessible and good, it stops being rare. And the moment it stops being rare, it stops being able to differentiate anyone. Imagine if the seats at IIT were given out to everyone who wanted them. No entrance exam or no preparation for years. Would this degree still carry the value it does today? I think for degrees to then become irrelevant, the proposition needs to prove to me that why employers will upgrade their vetting process. What does that look like? The hiring process for various companies that now looks like shortlisting and interviews which check basic communication, confidence, and performance under pressure now have added 4 to 5 extra steps in them. These additional stages require significant investment of both human and financial capital, which runs contrary to their profit maximization incentives. Consequently then, the degree-based system becomes even more relevant as a degree serves as an initial screening mechanism that allows employees to filter candidates without investing substantial resources in the hiring process. Second, scouting after professional identity. I do not think anybody enrolls in the medical school dreaming of becoming a receptionist. There are 25 lakhs NEET aspirants every year for a reason. The people driving demand for formal education are self-selecting towards terminal professional identities: doctors, professors, engineers, lawyers. So the market's aspirational structure routes ambitious people straight back to formal education, regardless of how much free content that exists.
Less than 30 seconds
These
left.
professionals hold life and death power over the rest of us. The degree, therefore, is a chain of legal responsibilities that not only creates checks and balances, but also handles sensitivity, legal checking, and backing that cannot exist in any informal sphere of knowledge. My second speaker will expand on this.
Thank you. Next, from the faculty side, we have Professor Mandal.
Good evening, judges, opposition friends. Let me start with two 12-year-olds. One of them can factor a quadratic equation faster than her teacher can write it on the board. Another one cannot do math, but can look at a broken radio and by evening have it playing music again. Now, under our current formal degree-based system, what happens to them? They sit in the same classroom, they open the same textbook. In 2 years, they will take the same board exam on the same day, answering the same questions, and they will be ranked against each other on a single scale. So does this sound like education to you, or does it sound like sorting and filtering? That is the heart of what I want to sit with today. Formal degree-based education was not built around the learner. It was built around the logistics of teaching millions of learners identically because personalization used to be too expensive to deliver. That excuse, the excuse of scale, no longer exists. And when the excuse disappears, the injustice, the unfairness becomes just too visible. Think about what we lose. India alone produces thousands of math Olympiad level students every year, kids who could be pushing the frontiers of cryptography, of quantitative finance, of physics, and instead we make them sit for hours memorizing organic chemistry and geography, right? And they will never possibly touch that again because the degree requires well-roundedness on paper. Meanwhile, a naturally gifted communicator, a future journalist or diplomat is forced to prove they can integrate a function under time's pressure, or they don't get the degree they say they're educated. We are not creating well-rounded people. We are creating anxious, exhausted people who are mediocre at many things instead of masterful at one. And this just isn't inefficient. It's cruel. Ask any psychologist about the mental health cost of a teenager who is brilliant at music but is told year after year, time after time, that they're average or failing because the one exam that defines their worth wasn't built for their skill. We now have the data: rising anxiety, disengagement, dropout, and so much of it traces back to this exact mismatch. The curriculum doesn't fit the child, so we conclude the child does not fit the world. Here's the hopeful part. We now have the tools to undo this. Not to burn down structure, but to rebuild it around the learner. A student who lights up in mathematics can today access Olympiad-level training, university-level coursework, and mentorship from working mathematicians all before they turn 16, all outside the four walls of a single fixed curriculum. A student with a gift for storytelling can build a portfolio, publish, get read by real audiences that no single English class could offer them in 12 years. Democratization didn't just widen access, it widens the depth. And it let people go deep in the direction of their strength instead of shallow across everyone's. And when my colleague next speaks about how this can be structurally rebuilt, you'll see this isn't a call for chaos. It's a call for architecture that respects difference. The way a hospital gives some basic knowledge, but then each doctor is trained individually by thousands of hours of talking to the patients. And we want to bring them to normal people. And that's what democratization of education does. So these people today can have common early foundations and then branch deeply, seriously towards mastery. So here's my ask of this room. Don't think that we are replacing rigor. We are keeping rigor, but we want focused rigor with the help of the democratized education. And here is my ask of the room. Don't judge this motion by asking, should we abolish exams? Ask instead, should a child's gift be measured on a ruler built for someone else? I don't think it should be. And I don't think deep down any of you think so either. Thank you.
Thank you. So now the debate is heating up. We have the second speaker from the student side, Vedant.
Yeah, am I audible clearly? Okay, thank you. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1, and go. Respected dais and peers in the chamber, my first speaker has established a burden of proof that the affirmative team simply cannot meet. For the proposition to win today, they cannot merely prove that online repositories are helpful or are convenient. They must prove that a decentralized, uncoordinated stream of digital resources has the systemic capacity to completely dismantle a century-old global infrastructure built on vetting, trust, and standardized institutional certification. My first speaker left you with two pillars, the filtering mechanism and the pursuit of professional identity. She stated that for something to function as a credential in a competitive labor market, it must possess differentiating value, which the proposition's world doesn't have. As the second speaker, I'll extend our case by exploring the economic failure of decentralized vetting and why democratization inherently defeats itself as a credential. Since the IT sector dominates the white-collar job market in most countries, and specifically India, let's look closer at it. Let us address the inevitable pivot that many people make today. They say, look at Google, look at Apple. They are dropping degree requirements. Skills are all that matter now. Let's look at this with the analytical eye. Why is this argument an economic illusion? First, it is the luxury of a hyper-niche bubble. A startup hiring 3 developers can afford to spend hours looking at individual GitHub portfolios. A multinational corporation receiving 50,000 applications for an entry-level analyst cohort cannot. Analyzing the cold, hard macroeconomics of the Indian IT engine, when service giants like TCS, Infosys, or Wipro need to recruit 50,000 engineers in a single hiring cycle, how do they do it? Here, the formal engineering degree acts as the ultimate hyper-efficient scalable filter. It operates as a standardized guarantee of trainability. It proves to a corporation that a candidate has already endured 4 years of mathematical rigor, structural evolution, and deadline pressure. In the high-volume world of mass employment, capitalism cannot survive without the externalized filtering mechanism of the university campus. Companies will never permanently internalize the cost that university currently absorb for free. The formal degree remains safe because corporate capitalism is lazy and profit-driven. But go a step deeper. Panel, look at the legal chain of trust. Indian IT firms build software for Fortune 500 companies, global healthcare systems, and international banking networks. These multi-million-dollar contracts are governed by hyper-strict global compliance standards. A Swiss bank or an American aviation giant will explicitly write into their legal contracts that the engineers handling their sensitive infrastructure must hold accredited standardized technical degrees. Why? Because the engineer writing an AI algorithm for an autonomous vehicle or a financial tech ledger is holding thousands of human lives and millions of dollars of public wealth in their hands. When those systems fail, when data privacy is breached, or when an automated algorithm crashes, who absorbs the legal liability? When this happens, a piece of paper is a legally auditable trail of competence. A global corporation will never risk billions of dollars of liability on a self-taught team holding nothing but an unverified digital badge from an uncoordinated online repository. The degree is the non-negotiable legal currency that unlocks global trade. It is the ultimate insurance policy for corporate capitalism. The proposition wants a world of hypervelocity, but they forget that the market requires absolute legal security to function. The formal university degree remains entirely relevant because it is the only anchor capable of providing that security. Even if we believe in the fragile proof of work model, which only works if you're writing a piece of software or designing a website, it becomes problematic when we bring this debate out of the Silicon Valley bubble. Can a structural engineer show a digital portfolio of experimental bridges to get hired? Can a neurosurgeon show a freelance track record on Upwork? No, because when human lives, massive legal liability, and physical infrastructure are at stake, the market demands absolute institutional accountability that an automated simulation can never guarantee. So formal degree-based education remains largely relevant and important for such core degrees which require deep foundational learning and large infrastructural investment. Coming to the next thing, let's look at their argument on the irrelevance of curricula. They claim that because university curricula are static and lagging behind the tech sector, the system is dead. They're fundamentally misdiagnosing the problem. The private sector is screaming for critical thinking, complex communication, and systemic problem solving. Where do you learn those? You do not learn them by passively consuming a fragmented, uncoordinated playlist of YouTube videos or Coursera and Striver modules. You learn them through the rigorous, stressful, scaffolded feedback loops that only an academic institution can enforce. They view education through a deeply transactional lens. As an undergrad, I can tell you that the most transformative parts of higher education happen outside the syllabus. They happen when you're forced to defend a thesis in a room full of hypercritical peers. They happen during cross-disciplinary arguments late at night in the library. They happen through mentorship, when a professor looks at your messy, unformed ideas and forces you to think critically. These hyperhuman soft skills are the only things keeping us employable. Else, you isolate the learner in their work
Less than 30
and hollow out
seconds left.
the human element of progress. Their word talks about things like MIT OpenCourseware and GitHub, but they confuse availability with accessibility. A wealthy student has the quiet room, the high-speed broadband, and the financial safety net to sit back and build a flawless portfolio. A vulnerable student from a marginalized background needs a subsidized hostel, a physical laboratory, and a structured campus environment to study safely. Their word turns education into a playground for the privileged. Our world uses the university as a welfare equalizer. Our third speaker will present a more detailed analysis on this. Thank you.
Thank you for the very passionate defense of your subject. I hope Dr. Chand will give a fitting reply. Over to you.
Good evening, am I audible? So good evening, everyone. In context of today's debate, I will be substantiating some of the wonderful arguments made by my faculty colleagues with some established educational and economic theories. First of all, the possibility of formal degree-based education becoming irrelevant is not a sudden disruptive revolution, as this has been advocated by educational philosophers like Paulo Freire, who proposed the banking model of education in the 1960s, along with deschooling theory proposed by Ivan Illich in 1970s. They propose that instead of following rigid curriculum structures and treating students as empty banks in which information is simply deposited, let us make the process of learning democratic and collaborative. And let me tell you, these are not just theoretical frameworks, they have been adopted by schools, colleges, and universities across the globe, like the Evergreen State College, Deep Spring College, College of the Atlantic, and previously Goddard College and Hampshire College in the US, federal universities in Brazil, Escuela Nueva University networks in Colombia, and the 42 coding school programs. These adopt strategies like peer matching networks, learning webs, apprenticeships, skill exchange frameworks, self-directed learning centers, and dialogue circles. Universal access to learning resources has been popularized by the likes of Stanford, Harvard, MIT, and in India, we can already see IITs, IIMs, NITs offering flexible options for skill acquisition. Here we have to remember one thing. Knowledge is no longer subject to elite gatekeeping, and credibility no longer judged by grades. Let me elaborate this on the basis of signaling theory proposed by Nobel laureate Michael Spence. A college degree was traditionally viewed earlier as a signal to prospective employers that an applicant has good potential, something that even my worthy opponent Bijita had also said here. But here the actual content learned was often secondary to the prestige of that credential. But today, this has evolved remarkably, with employers looking for signals in form of work portfolios, coding projects completed, micro-credentials, and independent research-based initiatives instead of degrees. This is championed by coalitions like the Business Roundtable, the Thiel Fellowship Model, as well as by Google, Apple, and IBM, and is called the Tear the Paper Ceiling or Skills First Talent Pipelines Initiative, where they are relying on proof of skill tokens, on-chain verified peer-evaluated tasks, and real-world enterprise building rather than centralized degrees as hiring criteria. Now let us consider the economic asymmetry. With formal degree-based education, there are so many associated costs bundled into the acquisition of a degree: housing, food, tuition costs, unrelated elective courses. With democratization of education, students can unbundle their education and choose only what is required for their chosen career path. Now let us consider the speed of knowledge gap. Whereas a formal degree-based program may be subject to red tapeism involving curricular modifications and old-school assessment structures, democratized open learning platforms, they are decentralized and update content in real time. They have faster achievable learning goals and are more responsive to changing demands of the market. Finally, let us come to the social impacts. Most of the structured curricular programs are designed assuming neurotypicality and are riddled with unintentional but inevitable bias. In contrast, many open learning resources, as evident from UNESCO monitoring reports, cater to needs of marginalized students with multilingual and multi-access formats available to even those who cannot afford formal education. This supports the Sustainable Development Goals of Quality Education SDG 4, universal design for learning, and also resonate with the principle that learning can happen anywhere, anytime, and is for life. Before wrapping up, I would like to say that the democratization of education does not mean that we are pushing students towards isolated bubbles, but rather we are making the world a global village of learning, interactive, experiential, and flexible at all levels. Yes, it needs regulatory mechanisms. Yes, it requires multi-tiered frameworks, but we are definitely moving towards this revolutionary era. I would like to conclude by saying that with universal access to learning resources and democratization of education, all barriers and gatekeeping regarding who can learn, how and what they can learn, why, where, and at what age they should learn, all these questions, they can be removed, and true autonomy can be given to the learners for transformation of the educational landscape. Thank you.
So we now have the final speaker, Krish.
Am I audible? I'll be beginning my speech on the reverse countdown of 3, 2, and 1. To win today, the proposition team cannot just tell you that online learning is cheap, easy, or flexible. That is simply not the debate. They must prove to you a messy world of short online courses can completely replace a university system that has spent hundreds of years building trust, filtering talent, and giving people a real chance in life. While online platforms can give you raw information, the formal university is what actually turns that information into trusted human capability. I'll evaluate this debate across 3 clear comparisons, contrasting their side of the world with our side at every step. First, look at how companies hire people and filter out candidates who look identical on paper. On their side of the world, this filtering system completely breaks down. When thousands of applicants show up with the exact same 6-week online certificates, companies force an unmanageable wall of lookalikes. To choose whom to hire, companies are forced to now spend huge amounts of money on long, complicated testing processes. Furthermore, a qualification only has value if it's hard to get right. The moment an online course is open to everyone for free, its value drops to 0. Candidates end up in endless treadmills of collecting useless degrees online, especially on platforms where 90% people drop out specifically. Counterfactually, even if we assume that companies want to rely on these kind of online badges as such, real-world business tells us otherwise. Companies want profits, and they'll never take on such a high hiring cost when universities currently do all the screening work for free from their side. On our side of the world, the formal university absorbs the massive cost of testing and training students over several years. A degree from a top university like that of an IIT is a proof of discipline, hard work, and the ability to perform under pressure. While employers on their side of the world are lost in a sea of unified online certificates, employers on our side can rely on a degree they actually trust on. Secondly, consider how formal education protects marginalized communities, right? On their side of the world, an unregulated online market actually hurts poor families under the excuse of open access. How? Private companies will quickly log the best, most respected courses behind expensive paywalls, while making free courses completely worthless in the eyes of employers. Since poor students cannot afford premium courses, they now get trapped with low-value certificates, making the income gap even worse. Counterfactually, even if free online courses give equal knowledge, they never give equal respect. With a famous university name on resume, employers will now naturally favor rich candidates, leaving poor students in a worse off position. On our side of the world, a public university puts a student from a poor background and a student from a rich background in the exact same classroom, under the exact same exams. On the placement day, the shared degree acts as an equalizer, forcing recruitments to treat students fairly. A degree gives a poor family true social respect, real accountability, and guaranteed pathway to move on in the society, and online badges can never match. But thirdly, look at networking, job referrals, and learning and how to think. On this side of the world, learning is reduced to sitting alone in front of a computer screen. Doing an online course from home cuts you off from the professional referral engine, stripping you off from the alumni network, classmate recommendation, and job opportunities. Counterfactually, even if you build a great project at home, it will still lack the internal campus connections and referrals that a real-world driving would help it. On our side of the world, a physical campus is a factory for lifelong networks and intellectual growth. When students clear tough entrance examinations and face intense pressure together, they build strong connections with peers who will recommend higher at each level throughout their careers. The learning that happens during 12 a.m. library debates, high-pressure group projects, and guidance from the professors build the communication skills, emotional intelligence, and resilience that keep the people employable over a lifetime. But now let us bring direct rebuttals to the proposition that argued today. They claim that top tech companies are dropping degree requirements to hire purely based on skills. What they fail to realize is that a luxury for a tiny fraction of hyper-niche roles. A startup hiring 2 programmers can spend hours reviewing their individual products on GitHub, but a large company receiving 50,000 applicants certainly cannot. They also said that university syllabus are kind of, let's say, outdated compared to that of the fast-paced market. But employers do not hire an engineer or physics graduate just for textbook facts, right? They hire them for their critical thinking, trainability, and stamina. A lagging system is an argument to update the course, not to destroy the entire university system directly. Finally, let us weigh both the sides of the world. In the best case scenario from the proposition side, information is free for everyone, but trust in hiring system completely collapses. Employers face massive hiring costs, poor students logged out of the expensive private courses and paywalls, and isolated learners lack the network needed to get hired. In our worst case scenario, even if a university curriculum is a bit slow to update, a 4-year degree still guarantees mental discipline, trainability, and institutional trust, allowing graduates to easily learn from the job skills on our side of the world. Their side of the
Less
world
than 30 seconds left.
Their side of the world gives you a messy pile of unverified information, but our side is a structured, trusted pipeline that builds capable human beings and lasting professional networks. For all those reasons, the motion must fall. Thank you.
So first of all, I'd like to thank both the teams for sticking to the time. And thank you also for the extremely valid and interesting arguments presented at both sides. What we saw today was 2 contrasting styles of debating, both very effective. And we heard a lot of points and counterpoints. Frankly, I am still sitting on the fence on this one. And I hope that the next round, that is the rebuttal round, is going to help us make a decision better whether we are for or against the motion. So in this round, we are going to have the 2 teams ask 3 questions to each other, one at a time, and the other team is going to answer those questions in a short time, let's say 45 seconds or a minute. And my request to both the sides would be to please keep your question short. Your question should not be a comment masqueraded as a question. It should be a question. Make a pointed question and please give civil answers to each other. Now, since the faculty team started first, for the rebuttal round, we are going to have the student side ask the first question. Over to you.
Hello. I guess I'm audible. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, the proposition team talked about the dropout rates that come in offline courses because there is not a much amount of good learning in that way. But I would like to fact check over here. Dropout rates for online courses, or let me say unorganized courses, where this democratization of learning exists, is much higher and touches 80 to 90% mark compared to the offline courses. So this data directly shows that the direct learning and psychological capacity of a student is more in a degree-based course work. How would the proposition defend this?
The question, just to understand the question, is that for online courses, the rigor was lesser, or they will actually get 80 or 90% of the marks without doing much or learning much, compared to offline case, though the rigor is this. So I think that we need to actually distinguish the unstructured self-study or without rigor study than what we are proposing. We are not proposing without rigor, and we are not proposing leave the kids with YouTube, just let them listen and let them actually do whatever they want, and at the end just give them their whatever marks they actually have. But rather, we are proposing mentored, assessed, milestone-driven tracks like Olympiad programs, apprenticeships, project-based certification that have structure, just not identical structure for everyone, which is the hallmark of a degree-based education. So this is exactly what our argument is, that we are not want to do away with the rigor, but we want to make more targeted rigor so that we can make the students the best they are. Previously, it was not possible due to scale. Now, with democratization of information, it is now possible.
Thank you. Now, the first question from your side, please.
Okay, so my worthy opponent also talked about 4 years of sustained difficulty and how employers often seek, employees who have gone through that suffering. So isn't our purpose to make learning more joyful, more experiential, more about situated learning, more about communities of practice? Why make education excruciating and then, make it as a signal for employers that they are more employable, really?
Usually when companies hire someone, they look for working with the employee long term, which means they want experienced people who have sustained such long-term rigor and have come out of it victorious. What happens on their side of the world with short-term online courses is that there is lack of discipline. There is no one to oversee whether they were actually disciplined, whether they did study 8 hours every single day. There is no standard rigor to measure on their side of the paradigm. But secondly, there is also no system to check how loyal can this person stay to like one particular course, because all of these like are very short-term courses. I think 4 years of spending in one institution, dedicating your entire career to like one degree shows a lot of like loyalty and like a lot of long-term thinking that these companies are looking forward to.
Thank you. The next question from the student side.
Like the proposition side particularly argued about poor people getting more opportunities on their side. While that may be true, how does it ease out the overall hiring process by those companies? It may lead to like piling up of similar CVs based on similar skills as well.
Right. So, one of the things we need to look at when we are having this argument is the distribution of talent and also the distribution of tasks and jobs that exist in industry. A vast majority of jobs that exist are at the bottom of the pyramid than at the top of the pyramid. And for the bottom of the pyramid, let us take a case study. So let us say I am into manufacturing of robots and I require people who are good with CAD, who are good with CNC programming and have some basic understanding of electronics and mechatronics within the system. Now my problem is, I am a company that does not have too much of money. I am working on thin margins. So I do not need somebody who is brilliant, can solve non-linear, algebraic, calculus systems, but rather has good expertise, good experience in a certain set of topics. So if that is the case, then it makes sense that I do not want someone from a program where they have spent a lot of time, lot of money, getting an all-round experience, but rather I would be happy with someone who has spent lesser amount of time but has gained experience in the topics that I am interested in. So, yeah.
Thank you. The next rebuttal from your side.
So we have been talking, I've been listening to all of your arguments also, and even during the rebuttal round, we've just been talking amongst ourselves. Mostly I've been talking about, messy, non-standardized piles of information. So why are we assuming that we are talking only about digital content that is accessible online and any learner is just accessing them randomly? Why are we not talking about, as Bijita also said, about standardized curricular structure? So we are talking about the irrelevance of formal degree-based education, but we are not really advocating for pure online random structures that are available. So the branding is still there. The branding can be there from, sought after institutions, as you also said. So why are we talking about messy, unstructured piles of information?
Can I? Okay. So first of all, I think we should make this clear about what this formal degree-based education is. It's not just a way of learning, but it's a structure which has, as I said, a kind of vetting, a kind of societal trust that makes it more bigger. What do I mean by that? We do teach knowledge to students in a classroom, but it is a kind of method through which we teach it. We will first teach some kind of chapters, then there would be some kind of regular exams, and when these students pass those regular exams, they are given certain kind of grades. Those grades then are calculated and then CGPA is produced, which the CDC or the company sees at the end, filters out candidates based on that, and that's how also CVs and different kinds of things are. This whole process is called as formal degree-based education, which is the institutional process that we are talking about. Now, coming to the motion, what does the motion say? Motion says that when democratization would happen, what would society think it? Society would think degrees are useless, we would not take degrees, or degrees would not be beneficial to take certain kind of jobs. What do we propose? Even if democratization exists, even if everyone is getting universal access to learning, I am seeing lectures in IIT of different YouTube channels, I am seeing NPTEL lectures as well, but then also people do care about degree-based education. Why? That is what we said. Degree-based education is that anchor which company uses to filter out candidates. It is the government, because government has a trust, government has syllabi boards that they establish in degree-based educations. They have a kind of syllabus structure which they implement. University grants commissions call for policies through which they implement it. So it's a kind of institutional structure through which they filter out candidates, through which they give degrees. When we are shifting to a democratized pathway or universal access to learning, if you are saying that would also have a same structure like this, then it's no different than a formal degree-based education. If, let me say, IIT Madras gives BS data science course, it takes exams, it gives online certificates to the candidates, it is still happening under IIT Madras, it is still a formal degree-based education, because it is structured, it follows the same methodology. That would be our argument.
Thank you. Last questions from your side.
I think the whole proposition argument stands on the fact that there are a lot of people who have like different kind of learning needs and different kind of like environment, and they should all be able to choose. But I think we all agree with that, and that should be the case, but we do not see any pathway to how that can be achieved, or how, even if we make democratization available to everyone and people are able to access it, how it would go ahead and actually help people, or the system be accepting of people. For example, if I'm not someone who's like good with maths and I want to do, let's say, art degrees, that does not mean jobs for art suddenly increases in the market. So ultimately, it is of no use even if I'm studying like art degrees, art from like online free courses.
I think they did not understand your question. It was more of a comment, please. Can you ask a specific question, please?
My question is that people should be assessed according to their own learning needs and their own different, which was like the proposition point. My question is, even if we do provide them like need-based learning, for example, if someone is a slow learner, or if someone does not want to learn a specific way, I don't think just because we provide them that kind of access, the industry automatically creates jobs or creates that space for them to be accepting of those things. So even if they are learning at their own pace, or they're learning according to their own needs and interests, that doesn't mean their interest is suddenly having a space in the market. So ultimately their learning is not actually being helpful like anywhere.
So you talked about slow learners and how we can help them, and how our proposition can help, how the democratization of education can help here. So like in a classroom, when we are trying to, when in a heterogeneous classroom, we have different pedagogical techniques, which are teacher practices. But there is a limit to what a teacher can do, right? And in such, when you're talking about universalization of your learning resources, there can be adaptive learning platforms, there can be personalized learning pathways curated for every learner. So now the attention that we as teachers may not be able to give to each individual learner, learning at their own pace, that can be facilitated when you're talking about universal learning resources. Personalized learning pathways can be there, which the learner can pause. The system can learn from their hesitation, from their pauses, from their mistakes, and can offer curated, tailored solutions for every learner. So in this way, I think every learner in their unique way can be helped. In my talk, I also, talked about how multilingual, multi-format, resources are available on such platforms in such systems that are being curated. So for neurodivergent learners, we have so many types of, systems that are being created. So I think as opposed to formal degree-based programs, these learners will actually be helped when democratization of education happens.
Thank you. We have time for one last question from the faculty side.
All right. So, see, the whole thing over here is whether the degree actually says something. So again, let's consider an example. So let us say that I tell you there is a person XYZ who has graduated from Max Engineering College based out of Midnapur, and he has done his bachelor's in mechatronics, and he has gotten an 8.7 CGPA. Now, what does this really tell me about the candidate? Now, just based on the fact that he has done something like this, does it really tell me that he is someone who is suitable and I can take him into my company and he is going to build some systems for me, solutions to some of the problems that exist? So, a degree by itself doesn't really tell you anything unless you have spent time with the person. So, like, would you rather take a person from Max Engineering College with 8.7 CGPA in mechatronics, or rather, let us say that you have an institution as reputed as, let's say, GRE, JEE, Olympiads, which are also offering curated, pointed courses where they have conducted multi-tiered exams and they have taken multi-tiered experimental demonstrations to give them a degree. Which would you trust more?
Yeah, I think I need to first make one thing clear for proposition. Here, proposition has to argue about that democratization would replace the formal degree-based education and would make it irrelevant. I do believe that democratization would help students because you are giving universal access of learning to all. That's the thing that you and we agree upon. That's the common point. That is not what the debate is about. The debate is about whether that would make the degree-based system irrelevant. Now, the example respected Prof gave us about the thing that would I, as a company, actually accept or recruit a candidate whose CGPA is higher but degree says nothing. Yeah, there are many colleges overall in the world or in India where the degree-based curricula is lagging behind the tech sector or for different reasons has not been reformed enough. But that doesn't mean the institution in itself is not useful. Why is it so? So let me say if I'm hiring candidates, so the cases that professor gave us are something like some 2 to 3 cases which happened in a year, or let me say in colleges as well, where a candidate who has done a lot of courses, let me say Striver courses or something kind of courses, and he goes towards a company, and company thinks that he is a suitable candidate, though whatever his CG may be. But for the majority of student, company or let me say any corporate firm applies a strategy of filtering out candidates based on CG. Now, why is it the case? Why don't they go and conduct out multiple tests? Why do they only filter it out based on CG? Because they know it's the criteria. First of all, they know that it is not possible logistically enough to take everyone's test on 5 to 6 rounds. It is not profitable for a corporate. But second thing it comes over here is they know the methodology which the former degree-based education system uses, the rigor that we talked about, the discipline that we talk about, the deadline pressures that we talk about, that actually gets reflected in what CG that particular candidate has. Let me say if the candidate has the right knowledge, if he has done it, it would get reflected in the interview. But if a candidate doesn't have it, it would not get reflected in the interview and the company would not select it. So the niche cases, or let me say very less amount of cases, does not reflect what the overall system denotes upon or represents upon. It is what is beneficial for all, what is beneficial for everybody. And that is what the degree-based system represents in its first.
Thank you. This brings us to the end of the rebuttal round. Next, we will have the question and answers from the respected judges. So, I need a volunteer. So the format is going to be that the judges are going to ask questions to one team at a time, and both the teams are also going to be evaluated based on how well they answer the questions by the judges.
Here. First question is to the faculty team. So, in an university-based or a formal degree-based education, it's not just what you learn in the classroom that shapes you. There's a lot of activities that occur outside classroom. Your peers are educating you. Your sports teachers are educating you. The staff member with whom you interact in the academic section also teaches you some skills which are going to be effective in future. How do you compare, or how do you counter this argument, or how are you going to, fulfill these in a setting where it is online and you are mostly taking those, even if it is structured, but you are taking it in isolation from your room or from your home?
So I would like to first address this point by emphasizing that when we talk of democratization of education, we are not really talking about putting students in isolated bubbles or in dark rooms with just screens. So we are not just talking about the online formats only. So apart from that, when we are making the world a global village of learning, we are also talking about, say, boot camps, workshops, hackathons. There are very nice co-working, co-learning spaces that have been developed. I would like to name a few, like the School of Life, our Station F in Paris, the Fab Lab Network, New House in US, and the Factory in Berlin. So they have a wonderful ecosystem where no age barriers are there. So this intergenerational knowledge transmission can occur. So artists can be there, founders, startup CEOs can be there, and students can join in and interact with them, learn from their experience. And there are well-established peer networks where they can work together, develop something together. So the joy of learning actually comes together in such kind of spaces. They have already been created. And whereas in a campus, I agree that there is, we all have that romanticism associated with campus life. There's a lot of nostalgia. But at the time when we are living on the campus, it is essentially a pressure cooker situation. We are just making that socialization happen outside the campus in a self-paced mode, in a mode of their choosing. So it is more flexible. So I would also like to, hear from our colleagues if they have anything else to add.
Yeah. So again, one of the things I would like to point out is that when we are talking about campuses and all the features that come with the campus, it is a privileged select few who get to experience these settings. The vast majority of people, when they go through the formal education, they have their classes in dilapidated buildings. The teachers are not of any good quality. Assignments, exams are all a sham that they go through in order to get a degree at the end of it. So that's one thing. And second thing is that, let's say I have a person who comes from a family, let's say, which makes about 1 to 2 lakhs per year. The guy is not very smart, but yet he is willing to put his heart into something and then earn a job for himself which pays him about 20 to 30,000. Now for such a person who can hardly afford, let's say, about 10 to 20,000 per year to get trained, to acquire a skill, making him fit into our current system is very hard. But rather, if you have a training center, we are saying there will be physical training centers, which will focus on 1-2 things. And on these 1-2 things, he's going to spend enough amount of time, go through rigorous evaluation process, and basically pass his exams and get a certain skill. So we are talking about democratization in this particular sense. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I have a question for the student team. So if you look at, I mean, I have worked for a significant number of years in the industry before joining here. And one of my realizations over there is the formal degree-based education. If I just take engineering education, for example, I worked at Intel for quite a few years. And there, I think more than a mechanical engineer or electrical engineer or a computer scientist, what you require is a semiconductor engineer who knows or who has working knowledge about the skills cutting across these disciplines. So therefore, do you think that in today's world, it has become imperative to break away from these silos of whatever mechanical engineering versus chemical engineering or computer science and focus more on what is called the skill-based education, which is going to make you, which can be imparted over a shorter period of time and make you ready for the industry so that you can hit the ground running from day one?
So the point is, even if what we are trying to say is that even if we do establish such training institutes and even if people do enroll in them, the number of people that do enroll in them will be very few, because the people who validate this formal degree-based education are not looking for something that goes into the terms of skilled labor or what we call as blue-collar job. These people in general are striving towards white-collar jobs or professional identities. These things require a degree, which is why there is such competition and relevance in these degrees. As long as that demand exists, even if we do need skilled labor, due to various reasons, it is not something that people aspire to be. They aspire to be things that are much better or pay them better or put them at a much social, bring them much more cultural capital and prestige. And these are given by degrees. So as long as this demand exists in the society, the relevance of degrees will not go away, even if we install training institutions and vocational based education or things like that.
Also, adding up to this point, we do believe that formal degree-based education's curricula is not up to the point. But when you see that there are certain disadvantages in a structure, it doesn't mean that we throw the structure totally. What we are looking upon it is reforms in the structure. The universal access to learning, the democratization of resources are being added as complementary to the formal degree-based education. When we talk about NPTEL, when we talk about SWAYAM, they are monitored by institutes of national importance. Why they are monitored by institutes of national importance? Because government believes and government knows that these institutes of national importance works on a basis of standardized structure. They have high quality mechanisms to teach students. They have high quality profs to teach students. So all these standardized system is what society believes in, is what government mandates and government believes in. It is also what corporate believes in. Also, if we talk about a certain sector in which mostly this democratization of resources is happening, and on this basis is what jobs are given, is the IT sector. Because if we talk about medical, if we talk about civil engineering sector, if we talk about public services examination, their degrees are still required. There it is not that I am doing a certain kind of course and I'm getting a job particularly. It basically happens in the IT sector as well. But if we are looking at two candidates, one who has done a BTech in ECE and the one who has done certain amount of courses from over here and there from an unorganized sector, because these resources are not mostly organized at this particular time compared to the formal degree-based education. Company, most probably, for the most number of candidates, would prefer a person who has done a 4-year BTech electronics course, a semiconductor course, because the company knows he has learned through a formal degree-based structure. The structure was standardized, was mandated by a government, was mandated by an institute, and that is more important. And due to this trust and vetting factor, this degree-based education will in no time become irrelevant. But yeah, reforms would surely come, and we can see those reforms today as well.
Okay, so the question to the faculty team is that when you talk about democratization, a very important element is accountability. Because without accountability, this entire democratization is of no use. Then it will lead to chaos. So the formal system ensures the accountability with a clear signpost. So without that, the education system what we are going to conceive is not going to bring any kind of visible and tangible result for the learners. So how do you propose or how do you respond to this accountability aspect in your argument of democratization?
So thank you, sir, for the question. Regarding the question of accountability, the institutions that will provide or curate the learning resources, they will be accountable. So suppose if IIT is providing a course, say with a blended mode, so already some options are available. Well, students are taking courses online and then they have a say 2-week campus immersion module or some workshop available to them. So in that case, the institution who is floating the courses, structuring the courses, curating the content, awarding some micro-credentials, they are responsible for maintaining the standards. As far as accountability for the learners goes, they will always be interested to earn these digital badges, the proof of skill tokens, the micro-credentials, which they can again flaunt in front of the employers, maybe post it on the LinkedIn, add it to their CV. So in terms of accountability, the system works. Also, my colleague would like to add to these points.
So thanks for the question. So in general, the trust, this term has coming up in different forms and synonyms throughout from our esteemed opposition as from the question. So let me actually define trust in this. So there are two types of trust in general, institutional trust and social trust. And in general, for democratizing this education, the question is whether we will only have institutional trust or will also have social trust. The point is both of them are there, and that will help us navigate through what we are calling chaos. So at the beginning, when the MOOCs, this huge online classes came, they were not successful and more than 90% drop rate because there is not much trust. But now, these days, based on our understanding, in fact, in not only IITs, but on other institutes also, they actually take trusted courses where the trust is given by both social validation, like a lot of people know Khan Academy. I mean, I hope that this do. Or the people I heard through grapevines that before the placement season, there are a few videos that makes rounds after rounds, which are not really very so-called trusted, not told by professors, but they know. So that a social trust which saves students actually these days, and that is going against the confines, the silos of what they learn. The EC guys learn coding, the computer scientists learn hardware engineering, the mechatronics guy learns about some chemical reactions and how to do the simulations because they want that particular job. So this kind of social trust is already making their headway. We just want to put them into more structure, help them, try to make it more better. So to answer your question, there are already mechanisms that we want to unearth, and as institutions, we can use them. Last point is about, we actually have that in PhD curriculum somewhat for the self-learning module, where we help them learning from NPTEL and other just YouTube videos, and then we actually ask them, use them in their research. That is their test, right? And the point is that this institutional trust and social trust feed on each other. They are not at odds, which might be a bit of a misconception. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. The question to the student team, and I really liked it, 3, 2, 1. So your entire debate was, surrounding on this issue of employability. You said that this is required, this formal approach is required in order to become employable. Imagine a scenario where the government comes up with a plan of basic universal income to everyone. Then where your argument stands. Shall I repeat? The government comes up with the plan to ensure basic income to everyone, so that you are no more looking for an employment. Let's say 1 lakh rupees to everyone every month. So where your argument stands for this formal education, formal degree system?
Sir, I think even if there is a universal base income for everyone, then learning becomes less about needing to learn and needing to get a degree, and more about wanting to get a degree. I think even if the moment 1 lakh is with everyone and everyone has 1 lakh, there will definitely be people who want to aspire for more, who want to aspire to do something more than that. That might not look like money, but also cultural capital that the degree brings along with itself. For example, when I complete my PhD, it is not just about the money that I'll be getting from my job, but it's also the fact that my name will have a doctor in front of my name, or engineer in front of my name. These are things that bring social and cultural capital to families, especially people from like very marginalized background who probably do not have a lot of connections or a lot of wealth or like family lineage. These people rely heavily on these degrees to bring them that cultural capital. So even if we remove the income argument, the fact that degrees still bring a lot of social and cultural capital and people would want to aspire to get that regardless, still stands on our side of the paradigm.
So certainly if we are considering that 1 lakh is credited in each and everyone's account, certainly a month or so, but still that will lead to a setting up of a situation where everyone's getting 1 lakh rupees a month, and certainly people would go ahead and inspire more. Which means that me as a person, if I'm going to become an engineer or so, I'll try to gather certain kind of job opportunities which are giving me more than 1 lakh, which will set up, let's say, a baseline income for everyone. Which means that certain companies would now go ahead and provide income which are more than 1 lakh, but certainly require same amount of skills and whatever we have been talking about in this debate. Which means that a baseline would now be set up at 1 lakh, and now companies would give even more than that in the very same setting.
Adding to this argument, okay, the argument of our welfare equalizement, that is government actually transmitting education to propose welfare or to do welfare, to do affirmative action, that falls down in this scenario because everyone is getting universal basic income of 1 lakh. But there are two things that I would like to say. One thing is employability still exists. Why is it so? Everyone gets 1 lakh. Yeah, it's true. So money supply in the market, everyone is getting 1 lakh. Prices of products would increase and all those kinds of things would happen. That's economics. But coming to the second thing, people still want to do job. People would still aspire for more, as my fellow candidates, as my fellow teammates said. Second thing is, people still want employment. So when corporates hire employers, what we are stating is their trust is more on this standardized process rather than on this unorganized democratization of resources. Because of the rigor that this structure brings, because of the discipline that this structure brings, and because of all these kinds of things that this structure brings with itself. So this trust of corporate as well comes over here. And any other man, let me say he has universal basic income, he's getting all his resources, he wants to do degree in arts, he wants to aspire and get in some kind of performative arts. He would go to do that degree in a reputed institute, or let me say a kind of formal institute where he could devote his life because he has resources. So he would now think, I would go and study this topic more deeply rather than going to these small resources, because these resources are mostly designed to give employment. These are like vocational resources. These are not hardly rigor trainable resources. If you want to do a PhD in physics, if you want to do a PhD in literature, if you want to know what Shakespearean literature is, it still requires hard work. It still requires reading up resources. It still requires mentorship. It still requires talking with those people who have done PhD. So this all process is what is formal degree-based education. And that still remains relevant in that world.
Okay. No, just what all you are advocating for, that's what is going to be catered very effectively what they are proposing. Then in a way you are arguing for them.
Could you please repeat?
I said what all you have said, that after I am assured of my 1 lakh rupees income, I still need to learn more. And in that, what you are arguing is what they are basically, bringing forth the argument that let the education be democratized. If I am still interested in learning more, I'll go with the informal system. Why I should join formal system then?
No, here's the thing. That is what I talked about. Corporate wala thing, no? So when corporate is hiring up people, it is hiring because they believe in that standardized process. If you say in their world, there are resources which are following same kind of standardized process which the formal degree-based education follows. As I stated, what is the definition of formal degree-based education? It is this very standardized process. And if this very standardized process gets replicated by any other course that exists in market, it automatically becomes a course under this formal degree-based education. So this is the process. The process would never become irrelevant. It would still stay relevant in the society.
Okay, my question first to the student team, okay? You talked about, employability, so I will continue with that. Now, I'll just share some NPTEL statistics, okay? Now, of the last 2025 statistics say that of 17.84 lakhs of NPTEL exam takers, more than 9 lakhs have taken it for getting job and for skill upgradation. So if the employers are not valuing, online education or online certificates, how can you justify this statistic?
So this debate from the very start is not about that this online-based education will certainly become irrelevant or whatsoever. It's basically on the fact that the formal degree-based system will become irrelevant as soon as the fact that these online systems will continue to exist. Which means that even if nowadays what setting happens is that we are pursuing a formal degree and alongside we are doing these kind of vocational sources as well. The debate is all about when these kind of formal vocational sources will continue to exist, the degree-based system would become irrelevant. Fine, me pursuing a formal degree would go ahead and certainly pursue an NPTEL course in order to get learning toward a certain skill. But that doesn't mean that me as a person would certainly rely on that particular vocational source as a degree itself. Which means I'm going through all the processes which we have been stating so far from this side, as well as I'm going for my own interest or my own interest of employability, I'm learning that courses alongside how to get a job. But if I would certainly rely on that particularly just to get a job, it means that A, I'm not able to go through the rigorous process, but B, I'm not able to experience the whole of a process and I'm just bypassing what actually employers seek, right?
I think then what these online courses become is what we call in CDC terms CV spikes. What I mean by that is when you go ahead and do these online courses, the maximum you can get out of it is probably put it on your resume and it shows to the employer that okay, this person has something additional to already exist in degree. But I think on their side of the world where degree is irrelevant, which means people do not care about degrees anymore or they do not have a degree in the first place but have done these NTPL courses, I will give you a simple comparison. This one person who has a degree and has done a few courses compared to another person who does not have a degree but has done these other courses, I think the person who has the degree and has done these extra courses as an additional gets preferred over the other person. It is because when you do these things, they are only considered as additional spikes. They will never be able to replace the very degree that you are in.
Okay, thank you. Now my question to the faculty team. You were saying that the democratization of the education and the importance of these online resources. Now, when we are talking, again I will come back to NPTEL. Now, when we are talking about the NPTEL repository, which is the largest online repository of knowledge in the world, it says. Now, when we are having courses in NPTEL, you talked a very interesting point, that is the institutional trust. Now, when NPTEL courses are selected, they are Senate approved courses of IITs. So, it's actually the institution trust only. It is actually the trust on the institution. It is not the trust on the, the online system. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having such rigorous process of selecting NPTEL courses. So, it is actually what I'm trying to say is not the, not the social trust, but the trust on the institution. Why it is only the IITs and the IISc. So it is the trust on the formal system of education. So how do you justify this?
Can you please repeat the
My question is that while this NPTEL, we are selecting courses, these are all Senate approved IIT courses. So it is actually the trust on the formal education system, formal IIT system. So therefore, it is not that the education system is becoming irrelevant. Online system can never, replace the institution. Now speaking in favor of the students only. So how do you justify this? Other than why are we having this largest repository only based on trusted institutional repository?
Right. So I think the whole set of arguments and points we are making over here. So from the beginning, what we have been saying is that when we look at the current formal degree-based program, when I say degree-based, what I am referring to is 3-year, 4-year programs in the undergraduate level and possibly 2-year, 3-year in the postgraduate level. I am saying that we need some alternative pathways for majority of the students. And these pathways have to come from a position of trust. Otherwise, neither are the people who are going to take it be interested in, nor are the people who are going to employ these people be interested in these candidates. All we are saying is you need institutions of IITs or in the Indian context, someone of that high stature proposing alternate pathways where someone can specialize in a certain subdomain and show that to an employer to get employment. Instead of doing, let us say, a 3-year program or a 4-year engineering program, we are now talking about, let's say, 6 months to a 1-year program where they have taken specialized topics, and in those topics they have done well. And if an industry only requires expertise in those topics, then they would also be willing to consider these candidates who do not have a 4-year degree, but rather have a 1-year degree. So
I think that's what they said, icing on the cake. That's what exactly they said. You're kind of supporting them, like it's a CV spike.
it's not a CV spike. It is entire CV. Meaning, if you do not have a 4-year program degree, or if you do not have a 6-year program degree, but rather you have something of 1.5 year where you have specialized in something, but you have done extremely well in that, then it shows the employer that in this thing you are good. Now, if that is what he seeks, they should be willing to take them.
Okay, one more. Yeah, please. You have to continue.
So, sorry about that. Right, so I want to make 3 points, actually. The first one is that you're absolutely right that NPTEL courses are built on institutional trust due to the vetting that you do. However, social trust, so there is, my point was conceding the argument that there's chaos, and that is not only NPTEL, but on YouTube, on other platforms, on the learning platforms, the paid courses, and so everything on together. So social trust will play a role. So my point was that both of them will play a role. So just to actually complement that. The second point is that, so I also heard about this thing, a CV spike, which is absolutely true. Like you 50 courses, all of them 90%, and so on and so forth. But there is a difference, actually. So what we know, and from personal experience, we are the children of recession, the 2009. So what we knew is that your degree or whatever the current job is, it's only as valuable as your next job. So your piece of paper of the degree will get you the first job. After that, it's all you. And that's why not all, even IITians, will reach the same heights. That's what history says. That's normal, obviously normal. So it actually stands to reason that when they go for the job and they learn on training, they write that on your CV, would you consider a CV spike? Possibly not, because then they have to substantiate. They need to put numbers, they need to tell what they built, what they learned, and so on. And that actually differentiates a CV spike from an actual learning. In fact, CV spike can also happen during formal degree process where you can actually apply for 30 minors. I'm not exaggerating, in some institutes, and then not complete none, but you add that I enrolled for this 50 courses over 4 years. That is also a CV spike. But then the job givers, they always seek for what they learned, and they have a way to filter these CV spikes from not the only one. And that's where we are arguing that the rigor should not be replaced, but directed. Please.
Just one more question. I think you talked about the affordability something. I didn't get that. I mean, could you please repeat that, what you said about, do you think that online education is more affordable?
So what I mean by that is, so one thing is about the period itself. So if you are talking about a 4-year program, we are talking about an expense over a period of 4 years, both for the college fee, housing, food, travel, everything included. So you reduce the duration of your learning, the cost automatically comes down. Second, we need to decouple evaluation from learning. So for example, so let us say I come from a poor background, and I do have access to, let's say, books, internet, whatever, and I am willing to learn from there. But I would be giving an exam, which is, let's say, something that IIT is conducting, and I'm going to do well over there. So if we decouple the two, then learning can actually be a low-cost affair, while evaluation can be whatever it is, and that automatically brings down the cost.
And that makes sense, because otherwise, say, I mean, if you disassociate learning and evaluation, then this is a different story. Otherwise, again coming back to the employability, for employability you require some certificate, either degree or informal certificate. Now, if I compare the semester fees of Vidyasagar University in Midnapur and this, cost of writing one NPTEL exam, the semester fee is much less than the exam fee for one NPTEL exam. Yeah, because if you need the certificate, or at the end of the day, if you just disassociate the learning and evaluation, then it's different.
See, at the end of the day, if we have to make it work. So what is the objective over here? The objective is...
Employability is an objective.
Right, employability, and you also want to widen the net in terms of who all are able to get learning and who are all able to get employable. And if that is the case, and if the cost has to be borne, then government has to subsidize it if they want the lowest of the strata to be able to attend and evaluate it.
Thank you.
So, thank you judges for the very wonderful questions. So, we've heard fascinating arguments from both sides. The judges have a really difficult job at hand to identify who the winner of the debate is, which side, and who the best speaker is. While they deliberate and decide on the decision, we now open the floor for audience questions. And as I said, today I had the privilege of having the ringside view to this wonderful debate. And I have decided to extend this privilege to myself and maybe ask the first question by myself. And the first question is to you, the student side, from my side. Throughout this debate, we only talked about engineering. Now imagine a situation, suppose I have a business which is doing well. Okay, now one fine day, I decide that I would like to learn about fine arts. Because of the democratization of knowledge, I no longer need to go for a degree in fine arts. I could have so many resources where I can do it. So is it possible that, engineering or medicine might be the last degree to get irrelevant? But we are already seeing a situation where degrees like fine arts, short story writing, humanities, so these degrees are already getting irrelevant. And like a termite, this entire system is going to eat up maybe 20, 30 years down the line.
Sir, you mentioned that a certain person already has a business, right? Which means that he has an established income source on which he can rely upon. So, if me as a person has a definite income source on which I can rely upon, and I don't need a degree for it to be go ahead, so I would certainly pursue whatever my interest leads me to. Even if I don't want a, let's say, certificate in that particular course, right? Like if I'm going ahead and pursuing a degree, not a degree like a course in fine arts, I don't want a certificate for me being employable, but that's just because of interest and hence I'm seeing it on YouTube or anywhere. But if I certainly want, let's say, a certificate for me being employable, that certainly needs whatever we have been discussing till now, right? And for that, why I seek so? Because I need something to rely upon for a stable income source which will make me employable.
Audience. Rapid fire now. So we only have time for 2 or 3 questions from the audience. Anybody from the audience has a question or a point to make?
No, actually, it is already discussed, and so from the discussions of both the sides, what I could gather is democratization is fine, but at the end of the day, you have to have a degree and then you go for democratization. Otherwise, your employment quotient becomes 0. So you have a degree, you have a, if just professor said that if you're running a business and then you want to learn fine arts, that's good, that's fine. That is, learning is never a ending process. As long as you live, you keep learning. But that does not associate with employment, right? So employability, if you want to talk about, democratization comes in only when you have a degree course you are enrolled in, right? That's what I gathered from the whole discussion we had today. General.
So, thank you, ma'am. Actually, I would like to answer the question. Here we are talking about formal degree-based programs, like their relevance or irrelevance in the future. So, when we talk of formal degree-based programs, these means like going to the campus physically, paying all those costs and going through all of that process. So,
If that is what you are talking about, if you are talking about a really curated course for a particular person, do you think a 13 billion population, can you think about it?
Ma'am, we are actually trying to cater to all the individuals rather than, figuring out who can actually attend the, entire degree program. Maybe they won't be able to afford. Yeah.
So I can actually tell one example where I can actually, that gives me hope that the question of scale that you are telling is actually getting solved. A 13-year and a 15-year-old actually participated in Indian government, the GOI ran hackathon, and they actually went to the semi-finals. Within closed door, obviously, so I cannot share details, but you can imagine having access to AI and having access to YouTube videos with a bit of help with a computer teacher, they could create systems for some things.
See, that you are talking about not even 0.001% of the 13 billion population you have in India.
Let me think.
So if you have a curated course for India, what should that look like?
Right. So we are not talking
See,
about...
we have talking about PWB, we talk about blind, we talk about physically handicapped, challenged people. We need courses for them. Really, we need courses curated for them. But how many can afford it?
Yeah, so let me try to tell
I think I should stop because this is going to be a never-ending discussion we'll have.
So let me try to answer the question if you are...
Yeah.
So ma'am, the point is that this is possible. In fact, I'm only giving one anecdotal example that you rightly flagged. However, there are efforts where curating this type of courses using democratic education for different NGOs work with a few teachers and this overall, this more available information, creating this more ad hoc yet trusted structures is something that is already underway. Clearly, the current situation is that it is possible, but it requires a concerted effort, and that is what we are arguing. We are not saying...
Definitely. That should be the dream, and we hope we achieve it one day. Thank you.
Okay, so I think the judges have made up their mind. One student wants to ask a question, that'll be the last one for today.
I have a question for respected professors. If online accessibility can supposedly replace the formal education, how do you democratize the $millions of dollars in physical infrastructure required for advanced mastery? A master's degrees or a PhD or even bachelor's degree isn't just about reading theoretical materials online. It requires hands-on access to clean rooms, specialized lab equipments, and direct real-time mentorship for leading experts, which can all be provided by the institution. How does providing free digital access to learning resources replace the physical institutional capital and practical supervised experience that higher level degrees inherently mandate?
So, two things over here. First, there is a presumption that democratization means online only. We are not talking about that. We are talking about making systems much more modular in nature, rather than creating these ensembles where a person goes through about 40 to 60 theoretical courses and 20 to 30 labs. We are talking about much more curated packages which can be offered over a shorter period of time. First thing. Second thing, so certain things cannot be replaced, or certain things cannot be democratized. So for example, if you're talking about a scanning electron microscope, which costs 3 to 4 crores, there is no way on earth that you can give access to 100 crore people to do experiments on an SEM. So we are not talking about democratization of extremely specialized, expensive, infrastructure-driven research or learning that is going to go through the formal structures through reputed institutions and most of the times government funding. We are basically talking about, most of the times when we talk about democratization, this is about undergraduate level learning to make them more employable and to create more opportunities for students without means or those who have challenges in going through the current formal structures.
Okay, so thank you for the questions. I think both the teams deserve a large round of applause. Now I would like to invite the judges to come on stage and please announce the results.
Okay, good evening to all of you. Indeed, it was a great delight to listen to both the teams. And on a topic which was very closely linked with our profession. And we thought of deciding so that our profession remains relevant. So the winning team is the students' team. Not only because the profession remains relevant, but also when we deliberated amongst ourselves, we believe that they made a good point. Faculty colleagues also made some substantial point, but then it was neck to neck what we thought. So congratulations to both the teams, and bigger congratulations to the student team, and equally to the faculty colleagues also. Thank you. And I think we have to announce
I'd like to invite Professor Mukhopadhyay, Professor Das and Professor Vashni to please give away the prizes to both the teams.
It's quite heavy here.
The original is golden. With the
Best speaker. And we also have an award for the best speaker. And this was decided based on the performance on all the rounds, not just the first opening pitch. And the judges unanimously decided that best speaker to be Vedant.
And we have a souvenir for each of the 6 participants also. Nobody goes empty.
You can open and hold it, it looks good.
Branding.
भाई ताली वाली मारो भाई.
We have small gift for the judges also.
क्या हो गया? अरे तीनों लोग एक साथ आइए, सब अपने हो गए.
There is one person who has not got it yet.
Then we will come together. Then we come together. हो गया? चलिए, very nice. Good. ये आपका है? कौन किधर गया? आज मैं फाउंडेशन डिबेट की रात को मुझे 2 बजे फोन करता है लड़का, सर फाउंडेशन डिबेट कितने बजे है? And that's what you said.